MagicQ PC, Part 8, Editing Cues. Okay, now a couple more things that we can edit on the cues as we're going through and recording our cues to our show. So let's go to the cue stack for a moment. So I'll hold down my control, go to my cue stack window that I saved, and some more information here so you can see what's happening. So let's talk about the different columns here and what they mean. So the status will show when the cue is being run, if it's currently in the process of being run, and when it's completed. The cue ID 1 through 5, and then say you want to put a cue in between cue 1 and 2, you can record a cue, relabel it as 1.5, it'll ask if you want to move it, and it'll actually insert it in there. We've done the text thing. Now the wait column in this program means that is this going to wait or is it going to progress to the next cue? For example, scene 3 here, if I double click on the wait time and I set the wait time at 0 and press enter, it will say here that the wait time is 0 and it is not going to halt. It changed this from yes to no. The halt column means that when this cue is done executing, this cue will stop before it goes to the next cue. But now we've done something different here because we've done a wait time of 0 and it's not going to halt, which means it will proceed right into this next cue. I'm going to go ahead and change this fade time here too back to just 3 instead of the split time. So now let's take a look at how this works. Let's do our run show window and go ahead and run. So there's my first cue with the blue. And my next cue. Notice that it went right to the second cue and started doing that because I put a wait time of 0 in there. Now if I wanted to, and I can just release this for a moment, let's go back in that scene 3, change the wait time to 5 seconds. Let's change to 5. Let's run this again and see what the result is. So there's our blue stage. So now this cue will run. It'll take 3 seconds for this to fade up. This is going to wait 5 seconds and then this cue is going to fire also. And if you noticed, you saw the wait time in there actually fire down. Okay, let's go back and we'll show that to you one more time. So there's our cue 1. Okay, the next cue is going to fire. This cue is not going to halt. It's going to come right in after this cue. So follow means this cue is going to follow that. But it's going to wait 5 seconds and then this cue will fire and this cue will come in. So here's cue 2. Wait 1, counting down. Now this cue fires. All right, so let's release that. Go back to our cue stack, take a look. So if you want a cue to come immediately or be timed out after another cue, all you have to do is enter a wait time in here and this will automatically change to no. So then this cue will not wait. It will come right in after this cue is fired. The amount of time that it waits to come in depends upon what you type in this field here. So we've told this to wait 5 seconds. Takes 3 seconds for this cue to come in, so then 2 more seconds and then this cue here would actually fire and follow in. So that's how the wait and halt works. Those actually affect the cue stack itself and how the cues progress through. The delay and fade times, well, you've seen the fade times, you've seen what I've done there. The delay is how long a cue will delay before it actually executes. So let's do this with scene 4 here. I'm going to put a delay on here of, double click it, and put a delay on here of 4 seconds. Enter. Cue has complex times, remove the complex times, and I'm going to click no. No, we won't remove those. So now let's take a look. Let's go back to run show and see what we have now. So there's our blue cue. All right, this cue is going to fire and then this one's going to wait 5 seconds, and then that one's going to come right in. And by the way, this 5 seconds is counted from the time that you fire this cue up at the top. So here we go. That cue is going. That's 5 seconds is already counting down. And now it's left with about 2 seconds, and that cue is in. And then you saw that one do its fade in 3 seconds down to what it needs to be. Blackout is up next. Everything goes to black. Now, watch when I click scene 4. You will see me click it, but then it's going to wait for 4 seconds before the cue actually fires, and that's how the delay works. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now the cue will spool up in 3 seconds. So that's how those different fields work up here in the cue stack. And we're going to talk about some of the other fields here a little bit later on. You do have a comment field if you'd like to enter some comments in there. And one other thing I'll show you, we'll go back to our run show picture. When you're in the cue stack, you have some options as far as what you want to view. Usually I'll leave it here because it shows my status, my cue ID, my little bit of text that I put in, if I have any wait, halt, delay, or fade times in and in my cue. I can change the way that the columns look on here. Now, unfortunately, you cannot drag the columns around and order them the way that you want, but you can change the view slightly over here by clicking on this soft button. It says view mode is default. We can click on view mode info. So now I have my cue text and my comment line, where this might be more helpful to you if you're following certain instructions in your script. So you may want to do it this way. I can do my macro. So we're going to talk about macros later, where it shows my cue and any macros that I have associated with that. And this is my tracking to show if there's any tracking that's going on in there. And then this is a media version if I have any projections or audio that's going on. So I most of the time usually leave this set at default. One more setting that you're going to want to do on here, and unfortunately it's not set this way by default. As you build your show and your cue list gets longer and longer, you're going to want to be able to see what the current cue is and have that current cue displayed. Over here in this soft window, display current cue, make sure you just click on here and say on. Now, every time that we reload the show, it will come back. So if you do have a long cue list, it's going to auto scroll up. Otherwise, this would kind of disappear and you wouldn't be able to see what cue we're on. So make sure you do go over here and click on display current cue. Okay, so in the last tutorial we went through and we entered some cues and some light values in that, and we have 5 cues that are currently in here. I'm going to go through and show you how you can do some editing on some of your cues. So you've had rehearsal, and there's some more things that need to be done with the cues and some light intensities that need to be adjusted and changed. So here we go. First of all, we're going to need to put a scene 1 or a scene that's similar to scene 1 down here after cue 5. So we're going to add that. An easy way to do that is simply to copy it. And so the way that copy command works on the PC here, and notice I'm not in run mode. The lights are dark on the stage. Nothing is running. I simply click on copy. It will tell me select this source. I'm click on scene 1. Now it says select destination. I simply click down here. And now scene 1's been added as a cue 6 here. I can always go in and retitle this, double click here, and say scene 1B, just to let myself know that it's slightly different from the scene 1 up here in case I change some values in here. I also decided that I need a blackout here to follow. So I'm going to do copy the blackout, click that in, so blackout's in place, and then while we're at it, we might as well bring the blue stage look back at the end of the show. So I'll do copy, blue stage, click down here, and now we have that blue stage look back. Make sure you go in here and adjust any of your fading or a timing that you want to do in here as far as that goes. So far we only have the one scene that follows that does not halt. All of the rest of them are halting and going as from cue to cue. So any timing that you would want to do. I'm going to change this blue stage timing here. It'll be a little quicker. Let's change this to 3 seconds. So we've done those adjustments there. So basically added those cues to the stage, and we'll be able to see them actually happen when we do the run show. Now, as far as adjusting values goes, we can pull cues back into the programmer, adjust those values, and then update them. And there's a couple different ways of doing this. Let's just do it in the dark right now. So I'm going to say, like this scene 3 up here, there's some of the values in this that just don't quite look right on the stage. So I'm going to go down here, I'm going to click include. The red light comes on, it says select playback or window item. I'm going to select scene 3. All right, notice this light pops on, which means we have included cue from QStack is into the programmer. So now if we look at the programmer, there's all the values for that Q3 that we put in there. Now, be careful here because currently all of the lights are selected. So we could go to intensity view here and we could see that they're selected and there's intensities, or we could stay in the program window if we want to. And I'm going to just select, I need my electric 2s to be just a little bit, my electric 1 lights to be a little bit brighter. So I'm going to say, these are, if you remember, this is head 6 through 10. So over here I'm going to say 6 through 10 at. So that selects my electric 1 lights, and I'm going to say at 3 for 30%. And notice that it popped up the intensity window as soon as we did that, so that it's letting us know that we've made a change in intensity. We can simply get rid of that if we wanted to from the programmer window. And notice that the value is changed to 30% there now. We can deselect, or we can just go ahead now and click update over here. And the values now go to purple. So now this Q3, if we look at our Q stack, this Q3 scene 3 that we just adjusted, those values have been updated and changed. That's one way to do it, is simply say click on include, and by the way, now make sure these values are still in the programmer, so we're going to click clear to get them out of the programmer so that we don't mess anything up here. So that's a quick way, is to pull a cue into the programmer, adjust the values that are in there. Let's do that scene 3 again. So I'm going to go back, look at have my cue stack up, say include, and we'll do scene 3, and it's gone into the programmer. Let's look at our programmer window, and it's in there. This time I'm going to do my color dash pars. So I'm going to say 21 through 24. So 21 through 24 at. It selects those lights. Now I need to change the color a little bit. If we looked at the programmer, this was one of those custom colors that we did for the salmon color, and maybe we decided that maybe we need this in a slightly different shade. So they're selected. I can go to my palettes window. I can do color, color picker. Let's do view gels. So we picked salmon last time. Let's go to maybe a light coral color, and that's going to adjust those colors for me a little bit more. Okay, so those colors have been adjusted. Go back and look at the programmer. We have some new values in here as far as the colors go, and now we simply have to click update, and those have been updated into that queue. I'm going to click clear to get them out of the programmer. Now another way that you can actually do this, and sometimes I'll do this because it works for me, is you can be running the show, or it's after rehearsal, and you just kind of want to progress back through the cues and see what's happening and see what looks like what. So I'm going to go to my run show, and let's start going through the show. So there's my blue stage. Okay, first of all, I've decided here on this cue that this blue is a little bit too dark. I would like these to be, the intensity to be a little bit brighter. I can simply click in this output window and select lights. Now when they have the red border around them, they are selected. So they're currently at 50. If I set them to, let's say, at 70, enter, it changes the value to 70. Notice that the intensity window popped up, and also at the same time this came on, which means these values are now in the programmer. Let's take a look at the programmer. But it's interesting here, it just included it didn't put all the lights in the programmer, just the color par hexes. But this will actually work. I'm going to go back to my run window. So these are set at 70 now. So I can simply say, this is the cue that I'm currently on. I can simply click update, and we get a different window that pops up, and it's going to ask us, do we want to update Q1, Q stack 1, Q1 blue stage? Do we want to update this? And I'll say done. So now that is updated. Make sure we clear out our programmer to get rid of those red. So that cue is actually updated. So if I release this cue stack and we go back and we run it again, you'll notice that this time these lights come up to 70%. So they've been adjusted in the cue. So a lot of times this is the way that I'll go through and I'll edit cues in my run window so I can just progress through. Let's go to the next scene, scene 1. I've decided that for scene 1 here, and I'll have to go back to scene 1 because we had that automatic progress through, that these lights came on and I don't really want them. So I'm going to click this button here, which is going to take me back 1 cue. All right, I'm going to select my rogue spots, and they're red. It does have a red border around it. It's hard to see. But I'm going to say at 0, enter. So we're going to change the intensity to 0 there. Again, if we look, you'll see that the rogue spot information went into the programmer and the dimmer set at 0. So basically they're turned off. Let's go back to run show. They're at 0, so they're now dark. And I can simply click update. Again, it appears update Q stack 1, Q2, scene 1. Do you want me to update that? I'll say done. It's updated. Make sure we click clear to get the information out of the programmer. So now if I go back, and by the way, you can use this as the back key. Let's go back to our blue setting. When I progress to scene 1, you will not see the rogue 1 spots come on now because we've taken them out of scene 1. Now remember, this is going to go scene 1 and then delay and then progress right to scene 2 because we've put in that wait command. So here we go. All right, so the rogue 1 spots are out. They're no longer in there, and now it's going to that scene 3 and progresses in there. And you can use this for anything. So I'm progressing through. There's our blackout cue. Here's scene 4. Remember, there's a delay on this one of 5 seconds before it comes up. Let's say, let's deal with the rogue spots again. Let's just say I've decided that the pink color doesn't really work for me here. Again, I can select them in the output window. They're selected. I can jump over to my palettes window and say, you know what, let's just try these as plain old white. Notice that this pops on. If I look at my programmer, those are in there, and we've changed the beam to white. So that's been included in there. Let's go back to my run show. They're still selected, and notice that they are on in white. All of this is currently up and running on the stage so you can see what it looks like. And this is probably why this is my preferred way of editing, because I can actually look at the stage and see how my colors are blending and how things look. So that looks like we're good there. I'm going to say update. The message is going to come up. Q stack 1, Q5, scene 4. Do we want to update that? And I'm going to say yes, that's updated. Don't forget to release or clear that out. If we go back a cue before that to the blackout and progress in here, then we should see our rogue ones coming up in white instead of coming up in pink. Remember, there's a delay on this cue and then it rolls in. There they are coming up at white. Go to our next cue. Now notice that there is a lot of changing in here because the color wheel is progressing through. This is the 3-second fade. So the color wheel is taking time, 3 seconds, to scroll from one color to the next color. And we're going to show you how to fix that real carefully, real quickly in timing here. But let's just check the rest of our cues before we do that. Blackout cue looks good. And then we go to the blue stage where that comes up. Okay. So again, you get an idea of the various ways that you can go through and edit cues, whether it's using the include command to pull all the lights into the program or adjusting them and updating, or if you want to just use my run window here and click on the outputs and adjust your lights that way. Either way works perfectly fine. Okay, one more thing that we're going to do as far as editing cues here, and I wanted to show you. This is kind of an advanced feature, but I think it won't hurt to show you what's going on. So let's progress through our cues here again. I have my fader up. We come up with blue, and then we go to scene 1. And remember this, the cue's right to the next scene. And then we have a blackout. Now notice the rogue ones in the next cue if you're watching the output window over here. Notice what happens with the rogue ones. This cue has a delay on it before it executes. Alright, so you're probably, why is this changing colors over here? Okay, because this fixture has a color wheel and we've told it, you know, delay for 4 seconds, but then it has a 3-second fade up. So it's taking 3 seconds for the color wheel to change from one color over to the white color that we want. So what we really need to do is keep the intensity at 3, but tell that color wheel to spin as fast as it can and switch colors and get over to that white color. And you can actually do that. So we're going to fix this so that these spin up as fast as they can, even though the fade time is 3 seconds. So we're going to open the cue window here. And in the cue window, we can look at levels, which is there, and we can look at times. I'm going to look at times, and I'm going to go to advanced view here. Click on advanced view. And we can see with the rogue ones, the dimmer, there's a delay of 4, it fades up in 3. The pan and tilt, delay of 4 comes up in 3 and then swings in place in 3. And then also the color 1, that's the color wheel, delays in 4, comes up in 3. So I'm just going to double click here and say 0, which means I just want this to spin up as quickly as possible. We probably want to do the same thing actually with pan and tilt here so that we don't see it actually moving. So really, while the delay is happening before anything happens, I'm changing all of these to 0. All right, and we don't need to do update or anything because we've actually gotten into the cue timing and changed this. So that is now adjusted, and I'll just close this cue window. Notice that to make sure you're working on the correct cue, it says up here Q5, Scene 4. It's used in Q Stack 1, Q ID is 5, and it's called Scene 4. I'll just close that up just to make sure it works. Let's just release. Let's start over from the beginning. So there's our blue. That one's finished. Now remember, this one will proceed through after 5 seconds. It goes to the next cue, proceeds onwards, and this is a slow fade up. All right, then our blackout kicks in. That one's complete. Blackout kicks in. Now, hopefully this time we will not see, when we're going into scene 4, we will not see this color wheel spinning because it's going to spin really quickly to get there. The fade up will still be in 3, so we have the delay for 4 seconds, and it fades up. So we came up at the correct color. Now I think we have the same issue, I believe, going into the next cue because we're going from white. Yep. Same issue going into the next cue. So let's go ahead and fix that again. So let's go to cue, bring up the cue window, and I'm already in times and advanced view. And you can see again the color wheel is taking 3 seconds to spin. Let's just change that to 0. So you might still see a little bit of something happening there because it's not spinning when the light is turned off, but at least it'll spin quickly and get to that new setting as quick as possible. So let's go back 1 cue. Okay, so we're back in that cue here. Now let's go forward to this next cue. Notice that it went to the pink color right away. Now in real life you may see a little bit of a flurry there while the color wheel spins to get in position, but at least we're telling the color wheel to spin and get there as fast as possible. Alright, hopefully that will help you out if you have any issues with moving lights. I am going to do a special tutorial just for moving lights to show you what can be done there. And might as well finish up by going to our next cue, blackout, and then blue stage comes up and shows over, and we thank the audience for their attendance.